Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is Tracy Luco. I'm in the District Communications and Community Relations Department. I want to welcome you tonight to the middle school specific Return to Learn session. We're really excited for you to be here tonight. We have some of our district directors here with us tonight, along with all of the middle school principals. So just as far as just some of the housekeeping items, we're going to be going through a short presentation just to give you an overview of what we have planned so far and what we know. And then hopefully the second half of the evening will be time for some of the questions. A lot of questions have already been submitted. We know that there are a lot of questions out there. We probably won't get through all the questions. We know that already. But we are reading through all of them. We're collecting them. We will follow up with people directly. We're updating our frequently asked questions documents on the website as quickly as we can. So know that all of your questions, we are reading them and we're trying to respond as fast as we can. With that, we are also recording tonight. And the recording will be up on our website as soon as I can get up there tonight. So you can review this again, and we'll also be putting this presentation out on the website as well. So you can go back and review what we covered tonight. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Dan Cahill from our Teaching and Learning Department.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here. I'm Dan Cahill, and I work in the Teaching and Learning Department, and I'll be giving you a little bit of an overview of how we got to the model that we're at. So our approach to decision making is a collaborative process driven by data. And since last spring, we've done extensive stakeholder feedback with families, teachers, and students. In addition, we've individually and as teams gone through state and local guidance line by line to make sure we understand and are ready to implement what's needed to safely support learning. We've also worked with our local health organizations, pulling apart the data to better understand local circumstances. As you know, the governor's framework provided 5 scenarios. Right now, based on our county data, our district falls in an elementary in-person and a secondary hybrid model. Of course, that data can move around from week to week. So it's important for us to look both at the overall numbers at the moment, as well as the trends when considering how we start the year. So in middle school, we'll begin the year in hybrid learning. And what that means is that students and teachers will follow a block schedule, doing the odd period classes one day and then the even period classes the next day. Right now, we're also exploring how to use technology to make sure we have high levels of learning happening in person and while at home. While students are in school, we've added a lot of new measures and precautions to keep them as safe as possible, including face coverings throughout the building. We'll be ensuring social distance of at least 6 feet, and we've capped the capacity of our buses and our classrooms at 50%. In addition, those same spaces will receive extra cleaning and disinfecting daily and weekly. We've also added other enhancements to increase the airflow through the building, and we've included more hand sanitizer stations for adults and children. We'll also be making meals available to students who are not scheduled for in-person learning. Some of our families will be choosing the Eastern Carver County Schools Online Learning Academy. These families will be in distance learning throughout the school year. We'll be delivering that learning through Google Classroom, which allows us to deliver curriculum and instruction in a variety of different ways. In the ECCS Online Learning Academy, these classes will be taught by a District 112 instructor who's familiar with our instructional models and the expectations at every level. The teachers at all levels will begin the year by building strong relationships and creating a sense of community and belonging with their students, even though they won't ever be in the same space with them. To build on that, teachers will host virtual check-ins daily throughout the year to continue that relationship building and provide academic support to make sure students are on the right track. On any given day, there will be a combination of synchronous teaching, where students and learners are together in a live format using video conferencing technology like this call, as well as asynchronous learning, meaning that students will have learning tasks they have flexibility about completion and can complete on their own. In order to make sure we have enough stability to make this program as strong as it can be, we're asking parents and students to commit through January 22nd, which is the end of the first semester. And next we'll be talking a little bit about how we'll be supporting our special education students.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kelly Crickelborn, and I work with the Specialized Educational Services Department. Thanks for being with us tonight. There are a number of things that will remain the same for our students receiving specialized educational services and our students on 504 plans, and there are a few things that we want to highlight tonight that will be slightly different. First and foremost, it's really important to articulate that our students will receive free appropriate public education. This will be offered and provided within all of our educational models. Students on IEPs or Section 504 plans will receive equal access to education as their non-disabled peers. As has always been the case, IEP teams and parents, you are an important critical member of those IEP teams, will work together to determine appropriate services, related services, and modifications for each student. Students will engage in learning as specified within their grade level educational model, unless determined otherwise by their IEP team. So students will continue to have an individualized education plan, an IEP, and something new this year is it will include a COVID contingency learning plan. So you'll start to hear a new acronym in our world, which is CLP, Contingency Learning Plan. It will be part of the IEP. Each student receiving specialized educational services will have an IEP team meeting as soon as possible after the start of the school year to look at how those services may need to change as a result of our models as they change. So the contingency learning plans will address specific IEP services in each of the potential models should we need to pivot mid-year. And parents will continue to be an important part of that IEP team and will be given the opportunity to consent to that IEP contingency learning plan. 504 team members will review each student's plan to ensure that their plans are appropriate and are provided across each of the models. Parent engagement and participation and consent will be an important part of this process. I want to acknowledge that our Special Ed Advisory Council has been providing feedback and input, and we appreciate their involvement. There are some special education specific information sessions scheduled, and those dates are Tuesday, tomorrow, August 18th at 10:30, and Wednesday, the 19th at 6:30 in the evening. So if you have questions or comments specific to specialized educational services or the provision of 504 plans, we encourage you to join us at one of those sessions as well. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jim Munzemeyer. I work for Eastern Carver County as the Director of Buildings and Grounds. All of our staff will be wearing masks, and we've also looked at increasing airflow to all of the buildings. Interestingly enough, back in February, we had an outside group come in and measure every classroom for indoor air quality. So in that work, we did relative humidity, temperature, carbon dioxide, and carbon monoxide. So one of the best indicators for ample fresh air is the amount of carbon dioxide in a room. And almost every classroom in our district passed with flying colors. The other ones that needed a little tweaking have been done already. That was all before we added extra air to all of the buildings. We're working with an engineering firm to see what more we can do to our systems, enhanced filtration and additional airflow. We have to make sure that we don't push too much air through the building so that the doors latch properly and that we can maintain temperatures and humidity, especially in critical areas, printing and music, for instance. They need some specific parameters of humidity. Hand sanitizer stations have been added throughout the buildings. We'll have some at every main entrance. We'll have them near the cafeteria for the kids to use before they eat, and then we'll have them in the funnel areas of the buildings. So as the kids go past, they'll be able to use the hand sanitizers. Cleaning process. So throughout the day, we'll do often sanitizing of frequent touch points. That's light switches, handrails, doorknobs, toilet handles, sink handles, anything in the restroom. We're using a peroxide-based cleaner. It is on the CDC list of approved disinfectants. It's relatively safe, about as safe as you can get to still be on the list. Nightly, we'll be going through and do a more thorough cleaning. That's when we'll be doing the disinfection. Disinfection rather than sanitization. Disinfection involves getting the surfaces wet and allowing them to stay wet for the 4 or 5 minutes, the dwell time on our chemical requires for the disinfection. When school won't be held at all on Wednesdays, that'll give us a chance to clean up on the normal cleaning, such as washing glass, carpet shampooing, and things like that. We'll also be able to do a better, deeper dive on the saturation disinfection that occurs almost every other night. Let's see, cleaning kits. We're making cleaning kits, one for each classroom. So we'll have over 550 cleaning kits ready to use. If a teacher sees something that needs to be done, they won't have to look far for it. And custodial staff will be updating those and keeping them fresh. You'll see signage throughout the schools, much like you've seen in other similar places you might have been. The reminding people to stay socially distant, reminding them to wash their hands, and the requirement to have masks as you enter the building. You'll also see plexiglass barriers. We've had a number of 40 or 50 barriers that are portable. We'll be using as protection for screening, such as a kindergarten screening, or perhaps in a speech lesson, you might have a portable protective barrier that'll be used by the teachers wherever they need it. And then we'll have semi-permanent ones at the front counters, service counters, concession stands, anywhere where there's not a 6-foot distance between the customer and the staff person. That's pretty much all I have. Thank you very much.
So I went too far. Okay. I'm gonna, Kim, I see you pop up, but that's just because I flew through the slides accidentally. So I'm gonna do the transportation slides real quick. John Thomas is our Director of Transportation. He wasn't able to be here tonight, but he is more than happy to answer questions that are coming in that this kind of general information isn't able to answer. So in order to accommodate all of our students in as maximum capacity situation as we can this year, we have set up the routes in what we're calling a transit model. So even though at the middle school model, you are on an AA, BB schedule, in that only half of the students are going to be coming to school, the routes that the buses are going to take are going to be the same each day. And this will naturally cut down on the number of students who are on the bus each day. We're asking parents, if you know already that you're going to be able to drive your students to school each day, to opt out of the transportation so that we can be as accurate as possible in those busing numbers. If you do opt out, there is a chance for you to opt back in at any time. You just have to fill out the kind of change of transportation request form, and those changes are made every 2 weeks. So please fill out that form if you haven't already, based on what you know right now for your transportation needs for your students. Again, we'll be continually monitoring and adjusting those needed changes as we go. A couple changes that we've made this year just to make it as smooth as possible and as safe as possible for our students. We're limiting the alternate address request that can be made. So it's a home address plus one alternative request. We're not permitting extra riders. So students won't be able to ride the bus home with a friend at the end of the day, just because we want to keep things as tight as possible around the transportation. Some of the safety things that we have this year, all drivers are required to wear a mask. Students will also be wearing masks on the bus. We have additional PPE for drivers and paraprofessionals who work with students in close proximity. So students, especially on the smaller buses that need help with seat belts or with getting wheelchairs, those staff members will have additional equipment. The drivers each day will be doing health screening to make sure that they're healthy. The passenger seat behind the driver will remain empty to ensure 6 feet between the driver and the students. On the buses, there'll be extra masks for students who forget to bring theirs in the morning, as well at all of the schools. There'll be extra masks for students who might forget to bring their own mask on the buses when the weather permits it, just for increased airflow. The windows will be open, the roof vents will be open. On each bus, there'll be hand sanitizer available upon request for all the students. We are going to be cleaning each bus after each route is run, so multiple times within the day. And then at the end of each day, the bus will be cleaned with the electrostatic sprayer and approved chemicals. And then there will also be changes to just the process of how kids are getting on and off buses with the first kids on the bus will be loaded at the back, and then it will fill up towards the front of the bus just to minimize that contact in between students. One thing that actually doesn't impact the middle schools, because you guys are keeping the same start and end times, but all of the other schools are either being adjusted to earlier starts or later starts in order to accommodate those changes to the cleaning schedule. And what we're assuming will be increased traffic around the schools as more parents are going to be dropping off their kids each day. So now with that, I will let Kim take over to talk about nutrition.
Good evening. My name is Kim Front, and I'm the Director of Nutrition Services. And before I just get into how things will look to start in the fall, I just wanted to mention that regardless of how the year goes, whatever learning model we are in, we will always have meals available and accessible to all students of Eastern Carver County Schools, no matter what. So how we're starting this fall is that students will have multiple ways to access meals, especially at the middle school level. So on days where your student is learning in their school building, they'll visit our kitchens and our cafeterias as they have in previous years. There'll just be extra safety and physical distancing measures in place. Our middle schools have 2 options for receiving meals, actually 3, but so for our middle schoolers within this that are doing the A and B schedule, where they're partially in the school building and partially distance learning, they'll have a 3-day meal kit available to them. So our students following the A schedule, on Tuesday before they are leaving for 3 days of distance learning, they will take home, if they would like, a 3-day meal kit with them. And then our B students, because they are needing meals for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we will have a 3-day meal kit that we will have available for pickup at Chaska High School on Mondays, or if that is a barrier to students receiving meals, we will deliver it to your home. The meal kits are 3 breakfasts and 3 lunches, and they are free for students who receive free or reduced price meals. So we have a couple ways where students can receive those. They can have a standing order where we just know that every week your student should be receiving a meal kit, or you can order week to week, and the buildings will work with the advisors. They'll place the orders right away in the morning at advisory. So that will be kind of your segue into getting on that list. So definitely contact our office if you need assistance with that as well. Additionally, we will have 5-day meal kits for any middle school students that are choosing to do distance learning. Again, those are available on Tuesdays for pickup from Chaska High School. And again, we will deliver those to your home if that's something that you need assistance with getting those. And again, those 5-day meal kits are also free if you qualify for free or reduced price meals. Additionally, we have daily meal pickup. So Chanhassen High School, if you don't want to commit to a meal kit, you can purchase a meal at Chanhassen High School, and it's just a drive-up curbside type service. We also have additional food safety and sanitation procedures in place to start the fall. It's something we always make a priority every year. We just are adding some things this year. We are following both Minnesota Department of Health and CDC recommendations, as well as the Minnesota Department of Education. So your students will see a couple new things when they come into our cafeterias and lunchrooms. Our staff will all be wearing masks, just like the rest of the building staff. They'll also be wearing gloves and face shields at many times as well, definitely during service. We have plexiglass and glass barriers that have been put in place on all serving lines. and a plexiglass barrier around the point of sale cashier to eliminate exchange of germs. Student purchases will be contactless at the point of sale, and we'll have floor markers on the floor to ensure students are maintaining that 6 feet of physical distance in line. All food items will either be single service or we'll be serving them to the students. So we will put everything on their tray and hand their tray to them through a pass-through at the very end of the service line to keep communal serving utensils and whatnot out of the picture. And our kitchen staff has assigned prep spaces within their own kitchen to keep them physical distancing from each other as well. So for staff and students, we're definitely making that a priority. If you have any questions throughout any of the process, I know this is a lot of information, but don't hesitate to contact our office at any time.
So our health monitoring is obviously extremely important to everybody this year. I encourage everyone, if you haven't already on the website, there is a page dedicated to this. It's called Stay Healthy, which will have this information that I'm going through, as well as other frequently asked questions specifically about our health of our students and COVID-related processes that we're putting in place. So we're asking for each family's cooperation to help us screen children for illness each day before sending them to school. So that means taking your child's temperature and asking them how they're feeling each day before sending them to school. And if you are having any symptoms of illness, to keep them home. Any student who's experiencing any symptoms while at school will be checked by the building nurse and then isolated away from others until they're picked up. On the next 3 slides is really the process that we will go through to handle the COVID cases in our school. This is obviously a very frequently asked question that we're getting in, and rightfully so. So these next 3 are kind of the different ways that we will handle it depending on the situation. So anyone who has a positive case will be reported to the building nurse at school. In collaboration with the local public health, a case investigation will be conducted. Based on that information that was received in the investigation, we will send notifications to those who have had a close contact with the person who is positive. A school-wide notification will not be sent for each case unless it affects the entire school. Anyone with a positive test needs to stay home and isolate for 10 days from the onset of symptoms or when they were tested. The symptoms need to be improved and fever-free for 24 hours without medication. And household contacts who will also need to stay home and watch for symptoms for 14 days after their last contact with the person who's positive. Any quarantine or isolation of students, classrooms, schools, or the district as a whole would be made in collaboration with the local public health and Minnesota Department of Health. So really in all of these situations, our nursing staffs are working very closely with the Carver County Public Health Department. So a symptomatic case. Anyone who has symptoms of illness should stay home or be evaluated by the building nurse if already at school. The student will be isolated away from other well students. Following up with the healthcare provider is recommended. A case investigation will occur and notifications will be determined in collaboration with public health. Anyone with symptoms should stay home and isolate for 10 days and return to school after 10 days, improvement of symptoms and are fever-free for 24 hours. And then this is the situation for if you have contact with a positive or symptomatic case, either a staff or a student member. The contacts of a positive or symptomatic case will be evaluated by the building nurse. Anyone deemed a contact should stay home for 14 days from the last contact to watch for symptoms. If the symptoms develop or they test positive, then we would go into that flow of a positive case. And all of these are posted again on that Stay Healthy webpage on our website. And again, we're following the Minnesota Department of Health and the CDC recommendations, and really working closely with the Carver County Public Health on this. One additional note I would make is that when we say that we are isolating in the building, is that we are taking measures to make sure that our kids who are symptomatic or coming to the nurses sick are being separated from the kids who are making regular visits to the nurse as part of their daily, kids who are diabetic needing their insulin, or if there is scheduled check-ins or to receive that medication, that we're taking more precautions this year to keep healthy kids and sick kids separate. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Dan to talk about the transition.
So we'll be starting the year in a hybrid model for middle school, but there is the possibility that we could move among models throughout the year. We know that numbers will be changing in terms of infection rates, and what's important is that we balance stability and keeping our system consistent and the health and safety of everyone in our schools. So we will be monitoring health data and other concerns, and we'll reevaluate our model on a monthly basis. Now, Tracy just described how in some cases a quarantine, a positive case may lead to a rapid change in a school building. There's also the possibility that changing rates in the community could lead us towards a more restrictive model, such as distance learning, or a less restrictive model, such as in-person. Those kinds of changes, if that arises, staff and parents would be notified well in advance of any shift of that nature. And then I think we can all agree that what we'd love to have is a way to do full in-person learning and make it safe for everybody. And in order to do that is going to require a full community effort. Public health data needs to continue moving in the right direction. And so we all need to follow MDH and CDC guidelines in wearing masks, practicing social distancing, practicing good hygiene, and reducing our risk of exposure. And I'll hand it back to Tracy.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I think that is the end of our presentation now. I'm going to start kind of divvying out the questions that have been submitted so far to some of the people we already heard from, and then as well our building principals who are here with us tonight. And again, please send in your questions to the chat function here. You can also email questions to our email inbox, which is 112online@district112.org. And we're checking there as well. So we welcome your questions. And again, if we don't get to yours tonight, we will be following up with everybody to make sure that you have all the information that you need. So with that, I am going to start by throwing out a question to our principals, and I will let one of them decide who wants to raise their hand first and pop in here. As we get closer to school starting, the middle school kids are very curious about how often are they going to get to see their friends. So one question in particular is, when we have said that we will assign seats at lunch, do the kids get to choose who they sit with at lunch? So if one of the middle school principals could pop back on to take that question. Or I will call on somebody.
I'm coming. Good evening. I'm Dana Miller, principal at Pioneer Ridge. And the question about choosing seats at lunch, we've chose seats always often at Pioneer Ridge anyway. So generally what we have kids do in the past is they come down and they choose their seat, and then that becomes their seat. The difference this year will be, rather than just coming down all as a big, large group and getting to choose their seat, they're gonna have to come down as a class, so we maintain that social distancing, take a seat, and then we will dismiss them to the lunch line so that we're sure that we're maintaining social distancing the entire time. So yes, they'll get to be studying by kids within that classroom that came down, and they can choose their seats, but keeping in mind that all seats will be 6 feet apart in the lunchroom as well. So that we're practicing those good safety precautions the entire time while at lunch.
Great. And then Dana, as long as you're up here, can you talk a little bit about just the passing time and how kids are going to get in and out of the buildings and what changes are being made that way?
Sure. And Nate and Beth, you can hop on too anytime here. Yeah, we have doubled our passing times. So we will have 8-minute passing times at all 3 middle schools, and all 3 middle schools are collaborating and following the exact same safety procedures. So anything that I'm telling you at Pioneer Ridge will be similar at East and West as well. So we'll have 8-minute passing times, and we will be scheduling those passing times so that we can move classes in a way that limits the number of students in the hallway. We also have directional arrows, so we'll have some classes going one direction and some going the other where possible, and the capacity for that's a little bit different in each school on how exactly that will work. And then arrival time, our buildings will not be open until 8:20, doors opening, and that is a little bit of a change, and we know that might be inconvenient for some of our parents, but we need to make sure as students come in that they're going either down having breakfast, and some buildings will be doing that in their common space and some will be doing that in their classroom, but they will report then directly to that first class, whether that's advisory or a class period. And again, that's all about maintaining social distancing. Students will not be having lockers this year. They'll need to carry their materials in a backpack, so they won't need to stop at a locker. They'll just go directly to their classroom. And then on dismissal, again, teachers will be escorting students to the bus loop. We'll be using all doors closest to busing, and then they will be escorted out there and again, maintaining distance. Nate and Beth, you might want to talk about dismissal since you share that bus area more than we do at Pioneer Ridge.
Yeah, for dismissal at East and West, it'll be very similar because we share a lot of our buses. So we're going to have a document that'll be updated as buses come into the bus loop, and therefore teachers will see that document being updated and they will dismiss as buses come into the loop rather than having everybody leave at the same time. So say, for example, your child's on bus 55, when that comes in, it'll show up on the shared dock between East and West, and then those students will leave. And then we will go to the next bus and the next bus, and obviously right at 3:30 when the bell rings, we will send all the students who are being picked up, but making sure to stagger them as they leave the classrooms as well.
Thank you. And then Beth, can you take a question? Just what are the expectations and what will the at-home learning days look like for our middle schoolers?
Yeah, absolutely. So students will be following the same schedule that they do when they're in the building. So for example, when first hour starts, they will likely be checking in with their first hour class through Google Meet, taking attendance that way and checking in with their teacher and their classmates. Some classes, it might be that they stay synchronous and are with their class for quite a while and are doing some instruction that way. Other class content might be covered in a different way where they're watching a video or collaborating online or different pieces like that. So depending upon the content and the needs that are being met, they might be on for a short period of time or they might be online with their class for a while.
And then can you, either of you, or if Nate can jump in here too, just talk about what, for those who are thinking about or who have already signed up for the Online Learning Academy, what are those days going to be like, or how would they might be different than from what Beth just described?
I think the big difference for the Online Academy is that their classes will be all students who are at home. So there may be some classes in the Online Academy that is also collaborating with an in-class group, but the vast majority of our middle school classes will be all students in the Online Academy with a specific teacher assigned to them and learning at home. So same things where they'll be checking in through Google Meets, ensuring that everybody's on track and knowing what they need to do. Sometimes that might be synchronous learning where they're online with their class for quite some time. Otherwise, it might be that they check in, make sure they have their directions, and then move on to do things asynchronously at home.
Thank you.
And to add to that, in addition, all 3 buildings kids will be mixed. So students that are collaborating online and have a chance to collaborate there will be collaborating with students from East and West. And we'll take this time, Beth and I, to welcome Mr. Nate Gibbs, principal at Chaska Middle School West, to the amazing middle school team, and he'll be fielding the rest of the middle school questions.
Thank you for doing that, Dana. I should have also officially welcomed Mr. Gibbs to Chaska Middle School West, because I know this is probably one of the first times that you've had a chance to interact with the parents here. So a question for you, Mr. Gibbs. People are kind of curious about what some of the electives like band and choir and gym will look like. Specifically, kind of a few variations on that. I'll give you a multi-part question here. A question about gym is, will gym lockers be used as part of gym? And will face masks need to be worn during gym class? And then if people have, and then if you could just talk also about band and choir and what that will safely look like for our students.
Yeah, so I'll start with gym. We are not going to be using gym lockers, at least to start the year. So I think that's a big change that students and families will notice. We're going to be working with our gym teachers to really carefully think about how do we make that PE experience really meaningful and engaging for students, but also recognizing that it's going to look and feel different with the reduction of participants in each class, and then some of the constraints that we have around social distancing and the activities that happen in that space. So we're still partnering with our PE folks and mapping out what that'll look like. I would say that kind of the guiding value system for all our elective classes is really, really maintaining those elements of social distancing and making sure that we can keep students safe in those spaces. As far as the music classes go, we're still planning on offering our band and orchestra experiences. That's going to look different. And again, it goes back to emphasizing the social distancing pieces. And so you'll see scenarios where students are broken into small groups, maybe small ensembles or small groups of students are practicing instruments or specific pieces together. But again, it'll look different than the typical orchestra or band experience.
Thank you. As a follow-up question to that, are students still able to request a change to the elective now that band might not look like they thought band would look this year? Is there still time and a chance to change that choice?
I'm not sure what the other middle schools are doing. We've been accommodating those requests at West, but here's what I would say to parents. As we map out what those experiences will look like for students, we'll be able to offer some more clarity around, one, the safety protocols that are going to be in place, but two, how different it's going to be from the typical course offering. So I would just ask that folks be patient with us as we frame up what that looks like, so that you're not making a choice prematurely that affects the entire semester for your student.
Yeah, and to clarify, that also is aligned with choir as well. So that'll be for our choir students as well too.
Thank you. And then some questions are just around, would that also apply to the kids who are in the online learning academy, that those will be offered and it might be in a small group or in a different configuration than usual? Obviously, if they're at home and the teachers, if they're all virtual, band will look different, but kind of that same answer applies.
Yeah, and just to stress what Beth and Nate have both said, our kids are middle school kids, and those music experiences are so important to their development and their investment. And so I would also urge, as Nate did, to not make decisions that could really impact them, throughout high school and take away those experiences. The day will come when we return to at least something that resembles normal again. And I would hate to see kids have given up on those opportunities. So our band and orchestra people and choir are working really hard to make sure that we can provide a rich experience for those students who are in there. And it may mean more individual lessons or small group, which is actually an increased opportunity from what we've had in the past. So I'd really urge folks to take time. I'm happy to put them in correspondence with those band and choir and orchestra teachers for maybe more clarity as well. But I'd be patient and see how that transpires before making that decision.
Great. I'm going to give the principals a chance to catch their breath, and I'm going to ask Jim to pop back up on the screen. Just a
Ready.
question, just more, some clarification around, and maybe it's different for different buildings. Is there ability for buildings to open their windows? And can you clarify what type of cleaning supplies are going to be used in the classrooms?
The cleaning supplies is easy. It's a peroxide-based disinfectant, and it's about the mildest disinfectant that's still on the CDC-approved list for use in schools. The active ingredient is peroxide. It's at 8%. The windows, most of our schools do not have operable windows. So opening windows works very well in a residential setting. In a commercial setting or a school, we're working with building pressurization. We also have security issues that we need to be concerned about. And again, we're trying to filter the air even more than we are today. So outside air isn't always that clean. So although if there's no other better alternative, outside air or opening a window is okay, but actually filtered commercial air done right is the preferred method, and really the only method in most of our schools.
Thank you. And then can I have Dan come back on screen? I'll ask you something that probably is applying across our system in general, is just what will happen when a teacher needs a substitute? There's a lot of talk about substitute shortages, and kind of, can you explain as a district what our plan is for both, you know, the planned, I'm going to be out, so what might that look like on a distance learning day, as well as possibly the longer times that teachers are out of the classroom?
Yeah, sure. One of the reasons that we'll be using Google Classroom as our learning hub as we move in and out of models at all levels is it really enables us to have staff come in and support each other when people need to be quarantined or they fall ill and need a substitute. In addition to that, it's going to be a little bit of all hands on deck. You know, our human resources department is working hard to identify folks who can step in and sub, and we're also looking at, you know, all staff in the district who have a teaching license, and in the event that happens, I mean, including myself, we'll be stepping in to support each other. I mean, this is the kind of scenario where everybody needs to pull together and keep each other safe and make sure that we are still achieving high levels of learning for all of our students.
Great. And then Dan, while you're here, can you talk about the assignment of the A-B groups and when that will happen, when parents will see them, and then what we will do for special circumstances when people might need to request a change in their group?
Mm-hmm. So we have a commitment to make sure that we are able to maintain that 50% capacity in all of our classes, and also that family groups can stay together. So the families have children in multiple buildings, they can be confident that they'll be on the same A-B schedule, so that as they're coordinating childcare, that situation will align. So in order to do that, our process will be is to build the schedule out for all 3 levels, including our students in the Online Learning Academy. And then using our technology, we'll actually run an algorithm to separate the students to make sure that every class at every level is the A and B is split evenly. As you can imagine, that's a very complex process. There's a lot of variables and moving parts to that. So because of that, we should have all that done by the 25th, and families will know if they are A or B, but we won't be able to accommodate families who have a request for one or the other, unfortunately.
Thank you. And then I'm going to ask the principals to reappear back on the screen now. Hoping you can answer kind of, again, a kind of a multi-part question. Are 6th graders going to have a chance to come to school as what would typically have been an orientation day before school starts, and what might that look like? And then for those who are going to be participating in Online Academy, can you just talk about how that connection to their homeschool what that will still feel like.
I can start and take the 6th grade orientation on, and then I'll pass off. Yeah, all 3 buildings are having for 6th grade only. So typically we would be having open houses or orientations for all 3 grades. Here in August, I believe the 25th, 26th, 27th are usually our dates. They vary between buildings. But this year we'll be doing that only for our incoming 6th graders, as we know that transition year is so important, and our teachers advocated a great deal for that. So I'll speak to Pioneer Ridge and then hand off for Pioneer Ridge. That is next Wednesday, and you will be receiving a parent email on that tomorrow morning. That includes the opportunity to sign up for a 45-minute slot. And students will be coming in groups of 15 per team, and that will allow us to be socially distanced. We need them to have those masks on, and then we will be escorting them to their space, and we'll have parents drop off out front, pick up out back. And so again, you'll be receiving an email with details on that if you're a Pioneer Ridge family tomorrow, but that date is next Wednesday, and there are signups between the hours of 1 and 7.
Yeah, we're going to offer a similar experience at West. That new student orientation, we're calling it, is going to be inclusive of 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So again, we'll have an opportunity to sign up for a time slot between noon and 5 p.m. And again, we're going to make that new student orientation piece inclusive of students at other grade levels. If you're unable to attend for that date, then we're working hard to make arrangements for families to get a tour of the building and get to be able to connect with some of our staff before starting the school year.
It'll be the same process at East. We also are using a Sign Up Genius in order to make sure that we keep our groups at 15 per small group. Ours will be happening next Tuesday, the 25th. As well. So very similar to West and Pioneer's process as well. And like Nate said, if you're unable to attend on that day, just let us know. We did include all of our students who signed up for the online academy in that email as well, for incoming 6th graders as well as new students that are in 7th or 8th grade. So that will be one way that we can welcome them into our building that first time. That being said, I think a lot of that welcoming for our students who signed up for the online academy will happen with their classes that start to take place in the online academy that first week of school. That being said, if there's a decision after that first semester to come back to the building that they are pointed to, obviously we'll be looking at how do we have similar orientations at that second semester start as well.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification about the online academy, and I believe I know the answer, but I would like one of the principals to say it out loud, that all of the classes that are offered in our schools, as the core classes and the electives, those will all be offered in the online academy. Is that an accurate statement? Thumbs up. Yes. Okay, so that's one question out there. Another one out here is just again around how are we gonna social distance yet have the kids switch classes every hour? So just maybe one of you can describe in the middle school model of kids switching classes, and with our block schedule, it won't be as many changes within a day. But is that going to still be that kids will be mixing across their teams as much, or will it be more of the elementary approach to like a homeroom class that sticks together all day long?
The way I think about it, overall, we're reducing the number of students in our buildings by about half per day. And then with that staggered passing time, we're reducing our half of students in the building by another half by separating them into small groups. And so when you look at kind of the overall traffic flow or traffic pattern that will occur in the building, it's a significant reduction from what you would imagine the typical passing time being.
And in addition to that, all the buildings operate on teams. And so within that, students are in classes with their teams. So they're not, so for example, if you have a 6th grade, we have at Pioneer Ridge, 2 teams. And so the half of the kids that are coming in are divided again into half. And so they're exposed to, you know, they have the potential of being in a class with a fourth of their classmates. And then those classes will rotate at the same time so that we, as much as possible, move those students together as well. So as Nate said, the amount of students they're coming into contact with is greatly reduced. And 6th, 7th, and 8th graders operate very different classes. So they'll literally pretty much be able to stay to those specific grade levels.
And we're quickly approaching almost the end of our hour. So I just want to give each of you principals just a couple minutes each to just to talk about, you know, give some advice for these parents who have kids who are maybe nervous or frustrated or, you know, a mix of emotions right now in terms of what can parents be doing for the next few weeks to get their kids prepared for the start of school, whether they're going to be back in the hybrid model or whether they're doing the online academy. Kind of what conversation should be taking place at home and what can parents do to be supporting the students?
I think one of the most important things that you can be doing with your child right now is having conversations about wearing masks and ensuring that they've got some practice with what that looks like and feels like for, you know, more extended periods of time. Obviously, it's going to be important for our teachers to take mask breaks with our students in the outdoors so that they can have some time without their masks on when the weather permits. But I think that's a big change for our kids to be thinking about what does school look like when I'm wearing a mask from 8:20 in the morning until 3:30 in the afternoon, minus some of those mask breaks and lunchtime, of course. So I think that's a really important piece. I think I met with a large group of teachers today, and one of the things we really talked about too is just that our kids have been home with us for an extended period of time. And so I know my daughter was without me this weekend for a couple of days, and it was harder on her than it has been previous to this last weekend. And so just realizing that them being away from home when they haven't been for some time is going to be harder on them than it has been in previous years. So giving them some extra attention and support through that is going to be really, really helpful. And I think the other thing is we're all really uncertain right now. So trying to be as confident as possible and sharing positivity with your kids and modeling that behavior of being able to adapt on the fly and make sure that you're being positive with them will be really important.
And I think I would add that, you know, kids reflect parents and our attitudes. And so if you're excited about school and getting back to, even though normal is going to look different than it looked before, our staff and the 3 of us for sure are super excited to have that energy back. And so I think if you can just be excited with your kids and know that we're all out there to take care of each other, they'll be more sure if you're more sure.
One of the things that I'm really pleased about, even to this point, is we've had some of our students really clearly articulate to us what their needs are as learners, and what their feedback was around the distance learning experience in the spring. And so also being really supportive of students describing what they need from their teachers and what they need from their peers, so that back at the schools we can continue to make adjustments and refinements to this new experience that we're all having. And so continue to have conversations with your students about what they need, what they're excited about, and continue to encourage your students to give us that feedback.
Thank you. And one hot topic that's coming up here at the end of the chat questions here is just the school supply list. It's that time of year where typically we're all making our runs to Target or wherever we buy our supplies, and just wondering if what is out there is current, if we should pause to wait for an updated one, and if students in the online academy will have a different school supply list.
I can speak to what we did update our school supply list, and there's a lot of optional things that if you are able to find them, for example, Bringing Clorox wipes is not a requirement by any means, but if you've just got a lot extra hanging around, please drop them off if you're willing. But really on our school supply list, so thinking about it as having them bring what they need in one day. So keeping those extra supplies, like those extra pencils, those extra, you know, markers or whatever it is, or one of the things we have a lot of students need, especially if they're in Spanish, is index cards for flashcards. So making sure they're keeping those extra supplies at home because throughout the year they will be needing those.
Similar at Pioneer Ridge, we've updated ours. We wanted to get that as teachers were learning just now, whether some of them, whether they're online or in person. So we wanted to give an opportunity for them to add to that school supply list. So ours will be coming out live again tomorrow. And same thing with East and West. There are things on there that if you can find them, great. If you can't, a backpack is a new ask because they will be using that as our water bottles for every student because our water fountains will be closed. And so just the filling station. So that would be another ask if students are able to provide those that we're asking. And then I would also say encouraging kids to empty their backpack for their Monday different than Tuesday. So not carrying all their class supplies, they tend to want to do that. So we appreciate your support in that.
Yeah, and if I could just echo the piece around students emptying their backpacks, it's going to be really important. This will be a shift in not being able to access your lockers during the day. So really being mindful of what you're carrying with you throughout the day because you won't be accessing your lockers. So encourage your students to really only travel with the essentials in their backpacks.
Thank you.
Important piece to just add on to that is just that if you are having needs for school supplies, we have a very generous community. So please just let us know and we're always happy to help with that too.
Thank you. With that, we're coming up to the end of our hour together. So I want to thank everybody who participated. Thank you to the principals and our directors tonight who were here to give the information and answer questions. Again, we've recorded this, so I'm going to post it onto the website and it will be on our Facebook page as well. And we will continue to answer those individual emails as quickly as we can and to update our website as quickly as we can to answer those questions that are not specific to just one family. So really, we're trying to inform you as fast as we can, and we appreciate your patience as we work through this time. So with that, I wish everybody a good evening. Thank you.